Greetings and welcome. We are in the 1010 class in the evening, and our objective now is to talk a little bit together about compositional approach, and that's kind of what I'm going to call this for your notes, compositional approach. In other words, okay, you've been given an assignment. What are the best ways to kind of approach that, that writing process? And now I'm going to speak to some degree in regards to theory for just a second. One of the approaches that most student writers will use is to do what we call move from form to content or idea. Okay? Well, now exactly what does that mean? Well, you're sitting in a class where the assignment is by the instructor, go home and write a story. All right? So home you go, down you sit to write a story. You look at the screen looks back at you. I got to write a story. I got to write a story. I got to write a story. Trying to come up with a short story. Okay? The next day you show up at class and the instructor says, okay, now I want you to go home and write a poem. Down you sit. Got to write a poem. Got to write a poem. Got to write a poem. Come back the next day. The instructor says, go home and write an essay. Same project all over again. Sit down, look at the computer. You're already now into, 3 or 4 of these for me. How are you approaching the writing of that essay? What most student writers will do is to simply sit down at the computer and try to write an essay. Gotta write an essay. Gotta write an essay. Professional writers don't write this way. They don't? They don't. Stephen King does not sit down to write a novel. No. Really? Really? Well, what is it that professional writers understand that young student writers do not understand? What they understand is this. If I can come up with a good idea, I can take that idea and translate it into any number of forms of writing. I got to come up with a good idea. Once I've got an idea, I can run with it. Okay? So the only question now remaining for us, which is actually not so much theoretical, it's actually practical, is what's the best way to come up with an idea? And the answer for us, that I'm going to suggest to you, is simply what I will call jam writing. Now this has been called lots of different things. Okay? Jam writing. What Peter Elbow will call free writing. This is how Stephen King writes novels. Okay? That is to say, professional writers understand they have to do a lot of work to come up with an idea. Once they have the idea, they can generate it in any number of projects depending on what they're doing in terms of form, right? They can do this. So what exactly is jam writing? Well, jam writing, first of all, let's just get some definitions out of the way. One, first of all, it's non-stop writing. Okay, that's the first thing. It's non-stop writing. In other words, we're not going to start writing and then stop. Years ago when I started a lot of this research, I would go into classrooms. I started in middle school. Walk into a 7th grade classroom, walk up in front of the entire group and say, today we're going to write. And they'd all groan. I'd say, no, not for a grade. Because they were 7th graders, I just give them the assignment, your favorite animal. I did not care what they said. I went to the back of the room and I just watched how they wrote. Classroom after classroom after classroom. First silence across the room. Then started clicking on the pen or lots of sighing, right? Finally, one brave soul starts writing. Somewhere like this. Writing. Somewhere between the 5th and the 7th line, the pen stops. Eyes go back up to the top of the page, start reading. A few seconds later, tear the paper out of the notebook. Click, back to me. Okay. Years later, they asked me to come to room 303, teach kids how to write. Walked into a whole group of seniors. First day I was in 303. I said, hey guys, today we're going to write. First day of school. Oh, groan. Oh, it's like, no, not for a grade. And then I gave them a senior topic, one I thought that they would enjoy writing about. Describe where you would rather be than right here, right now, and with whom you'd rather be with. Ready, go. Went to the back of the room, started counting down from 20, 19, 18, 17. Sure enough, click. Finally, there it was. And as I tell this story all over the world, we talk about compositional performance. It doesn't matter what language students are writing in, they will often refer to me as, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, right? So the first project in jam writing is, we're going to start writing, we ain't going to stop. There's a couple of other rules about jam writing. One is, ironically, there are no rules, okay, in jam writing. No rules. Okay? You spell it the way it sounds. You don't worry about, using the same word over and over again. All this stuff that this cat's talking about, none of that matters to you whatsoever when you're doing this kind of writing. No rules of any kind. No grammar rules that you worry about. None of it. And the reason, number 3, is there's also no audience other than yourself. Nobody else will ever read this stuff. Okay? Nobody else reads it. It's totally for you and only you. All right? Now, what's up with this project right here? Okay? What's up with this, and why is it that we do this? And the answer is an interesting answer. The answer is, actually, when you start writing, it's what we call 2 minds of the writer. 2 minds of the writer. Okay? For those of you who are Tom Cruise Last Samurai fans, you'll maybe recall that halfway through that film, he tries to swing a sword and it doesn't go very well. And the kendo expert will simply say to him, too many minds. Too many minds. Same concept, okay? What do I mean by this? Well, when you start writing, you have as your first mind what we will call the creator mind. And it starts to work. Writing. Okay? The creator mind. But somewhere between the 5th and the 7th line, from out of the shadows will step the editor mind. Okay? Often we call it the editor's voice. The editor will step out of the shadows and will say something like, do you have any clue how really bad you are at this? No, I'm serious. You totally suck. If you don't believe me, stop writing and start reading. Go ahead, I dare you. I double dog dare you. Sure enough, there's something interesting about this creative mind. It's very fragile. It will go away very, very quickly. And the editor will step in. And guess what? You do start reading. Oh, a misspelling. Man, I can't believe it. Oh, dumb. This whole thing sounds crappy. By the time you get back here to pick up with what you were writing on, the idea that you were working with is G-O-N-E, right? Now, all of a sudden, we're going to start all over again. So one of the projects for us, now I can define jam writing this way, and this is, of course, what professional writers understand, is that we're going to allow the creator to work, and we're going to tell the editor to go away in no uncertain terms. The example I often will use, and I don't know if I can use it with you guys or not, because I don't know if you remember the show. Have you guys seen Adam Sandler's film Waterboy? Are you familiar with this movie? At one point in this film, he gets really upset because he sees the head of his coach screaming at him, telling him how crappy he is. And this head is superimposed on this poor chap that he ends up just bunging really badly, right? Because that guy's screaming, screaming. We sometimes call this coach's voice. When I work with athletes, we'll often refer to it as the coach's voice. It's that voice that you hear telling you you're not any good. You're going to screw up, you're going to screw up, you're going to screw up. That's kind of this voice, okay? What we want to do is to allow the creator to work without worrying about the editor's voice at all. Okay? Now, let's go back to this thing about nonstop. Our goal is to shoot right now for 10 minutes nonstop writing. That's our goal. Now, I'll take you back to middle school. Some of you probably remember this. Out onto the track you go, and the PE teacher says, today we're going to run the mile. Now, I'm sorry for those of you that loved this day, because you got to, okay, let's just talk to those of us who hated this day. So off you go, running your little mile around the track you go. You get halfway around the track and all of a sudden something strange starts happening to your side. It's like, dude, what is up with you? Slow down. This thing's happening here. And the gym teacher yells at you, keep going. So, while everybody else is... you are just trying to stay alive. and you hit that little curve area, when all of a sudden the thought occurs to you, dude, I'm going to like fall down in the middle of this track. I'm going to die in my own puke, and my friends are all going to be looking at me like, bummer to be him. I got to stop. Keep going, right? Okay, now for those of us that never learned to keep going, it is actually true that if you can somehow break through the pain, the wall of that pain, believe it or not, if you can get to the other side of that, you can go for a really long time as long as you have good nutrition. Am I right or am I right? Yeah, you can. You can go for a really long time. It's really strange. For those of you that never broke through the wall because keep going just did not work for you, I'm sorry, but that is very true. It actually works. Writing is very similar. We found that somewhere around the 7th to the 8th minute, sometimes in some of us even earlier, this editor voice gets really loud. If you can somehow push through 7-8 minutes, you can get on the other side and you can keep going for quite some time. Okay? The goal then for us is to try to push ourselves to actually keep going. Now, when we jam right, we've got two kinds, focused and unfocused, okay? What is focused jam writing? You are given a topic as, kind of represented by that line. So a topic is given. You start writing, okay? Writing about the topic. But at some point, you leave the topic. That is not bad. That is good. That's what we want, okay? You leave the topic and you write about it for a while. But after a while, you run out of things to say about that departure. You then come back to the topic that we were assigned. Now you are back writing again. Then you leave again the topic. Again, come back, and again, and again, and again. That's what we call focused jam writing. You're given a topic. Unfocused jam writing is what professional writers do every day. They just sit down and simply ask, what am I thinking about now? And they just start writing. Okay. Now, that takes a lot of practice to be able to do that. If you haven't trained to do that, it's kind of like jumping out, to do 15-mile run when you ain't been training. You can usually do a little bit, but then after a while it just becomes really difficult and fatiguing. So having the topic will help. I also recommend, we'll do a little session tonight, I also recommend you have some kind of music playing so that once you've run out, you can always talk about the music that you're listening to as well. I mean, that's another option for you, okay? Now, whatever is in your mind goes on to the page. Whatever. So if you don't know what you want to write about, that's what you say. I don't know what I want to write about. I don't know what I want to write about. I don't know what I want to write. This is the stupidest thing I've ever done in my whole life. This reminds me of that time, and now you're off writing. Got me? I was recently telling this story in an interview. I stumbled onto this in a middle school setting when I actually showed up to be a teacher. And I even wore a tie to try to look like a teacher and everything. No, for reals. And as I'm walking down the hall, from behind me, there's this guy who screams a whole string of profanity. I'm like, dude, I turn around. It's one of the students. I'm like, hey, I am a teacher. Oh, sorry, dude, sorry. I open my door, I step across and he does it again, screams down the hall. You know how middle school kids do. And I come out in the hall again, like, sorry. What are the odds Reg would walk through my door later in the day? And he does. He walks in, he looks at me, he's like, oh, no friggin' way. So anyway, we're in class together, me and Reggie, okay? Hey, dude, Reggie by 8 years old had seen more than you and I will ever want to see in our whole life. I mean, he's seen it all. He's been... he hadn't been at school the year before because the year before that, the English teacher had pissed him off and he had thrown a Chinese fighting star at her. She had been bending over to pick up a piece of chalk and the star had stuck into the blackboard. You got to throw a Chinese fighting star really hard for that to happen. So he got sent away to the big bad place for that next year. And when he came back from the boys' school, guess what? Reg gets put in my room, right? So I know this kid's got serious rage issues. Now, back in this time, I actually read jam writing. Don't do it anymore. Maybe Reggie's story's why. I don't do it anymore. But back then I read. So I knew Reg had serious issues with rage. So I had them write on a topic about a time they were upset. So Reg hands in his stuff. I call him up after class. Reggie, come. So I said, look, here's the deal. I need to understand something. I asked you to write on a time you were like really torqued off, and you wrote about some stupid story about some dog or something, and there's not like not even one profane word in your whole writing. What's going on? And now he's looking at me like I'm the one stoned. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, dude, there's not even the F word. What is going on? I told you, there's no rules. Whatever is in your brain goes onto the page. I don't understand. He's like, dude, I don't write those words on page. I go, you write them in the bathroom on the wall? He's like, well, yeah. Takes me 2 weeks before I can get Reg comfortable with writing this stuff, okay? I go next door to the, teacher who's been there for 135 years, showing her how proud I am, and she's like, it took Reg a while to grow comfortable. Then they put him with me after school. Reg had rage issues. One afternoon, I see him tapping his feet, looking at the floor. It's not a good sign. I say, what's up? He goes, somebody's getting jacked after school. I'm like, really? Like, can I come? He's like, what do you mean, can you come? Dude, I want to, see your work. I mean, I've heard good things. Can I come? But here's the deal, I said to him. We're an hour and a half away from the end of school. You got to have an agreement with me. I want you to sit down and I want you to do that jam writing thing we've been doing in class. I want you to describe in vivid detail what you're going to do to this guy after school. And I mean vivid detail. But here's the deal. You got to write for an hour and a half nonstop. Then I'll come and watch. You cool with this? Yeah. You know where this is headed, right? An hour into jam writing. Dude, you are one fatigued person. Unless you do it a lot, you are tired. And Reg wanted to stop at an hour. I'm like, no way. We still got a half an hour before I get to watch you bung somebody. Let's go. Keep writing. His stuff was amazing. I mean, it was scary, but it was amazing. All this, the detail. By the time we finished and the bell rang, Reg was so tired. He was like, dude, just screw it. It's not even worth it anyway. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to rip this guy's eyeballs out, and then they're going to throw me in some hole where I was before. It's not worth it. He's not worth my time. But I'm looking at this stuff going, you know what? There's some pretty amazing stuff here. Why don't we take some of that and turn it into a couple of different forms of writing? He submits to young authors. He wins. I always assumed it was because the judges were afraid he might come after him or something, if they did, right? A few years later, I'm up here teaching. I get a phone call late one night. McGee. Reg? He's like, you think I'm in jail, huh? And I'm like, yeah, because I had to tell the truth. It's like, dude, I'm in college now. Who would have thought? He said they paid me to go to college to write. Now, what I would say about jam writing is that it's a way for you to discover ideas. So you'll want to write that down. This is what we call discovery writing. Discovery writing. In other words, a way an author has said this is, I don't write because I know what I have to say. I write to discover what I get to say. Okay? Now this is a totally different approach to writing than most of you use, where before you write your little essay, you sit down and write your little outline, and then you sit down at your computer and gotta write an essay, gotta write an essay, gotta write an essay. What we're gonna do instead, this approach is, we're gonna sit down and just start writing, and we're gonna wait for ideas to come out onto the page. And if we can keep going, we might shock ourselves. We might surprise ourselves with what we have to say. Think about this. You're sitting in a class of 25, 10, 20 lit students. All of you have to read the play Hamlet. All of you have to write a paper on Hamlet. But you know this prof is only going to give 2 A's out of the 25. You have to have an A. Question: how do you approach the writing of this paper? Suggestion: you're not going to sit online and read all of the Cliff Notes, the Spark Notes, and all the other papers that are out there to get ideas. Why not? Because that's what everybody else in the class will be doing. And so when the prof reads your paper, the prof's reading the same paper over and over and over. Where will you come up with your own original ideas? Start with jam writing. Find ideas that are your own and then inject those ideas into your writing. I would say it this way, for those of you who are serious about success in the academic community. If you can start to practice this in the rest of our semester and then continue it in the paper writing that you have to for your first 2 years of college, you can begin to become a more serious writer where then, in the form of the second phase of writing, editing, you can take the kind of ideas this guy's working with and they can really help you because you'll already have your own ideas that you're creating. Well, let's try it, shall we? Go ahead and take a blank sheet of paper or two out. Have a writing utensil of some kind. We'll do this by hand. You can do this by typing. And the way we do it there is you literally just turn the screen of your computer off. Why do you need to see the screen? All you have to do is write, type, okay? Some of you will be stunned at how easily and quickly you reach up and hit that delete key with your right mini finger, right? Over and over again. That's our natural mechanism, okay? Now, in terms of writing this, if you really want to push yourself, you can take another blank sheet of paper and just cover as you go. Your tendencies really right away will be to stop and to want to read what you've done. It's a way to make serious money at a party. Especially if somebody's a little inebriated, you can make good bank. All you do is say, I want to play a game with you. Sit down and start writing. Write about what you did last night, and then I'm going to whisper something in your ear I want you to do. You can tell them in advance what you're going to ask them to do. Most people will think they can do it. So there they are writing. Wait till they get to line 5, and then just simply whisper into their ear, I want you to keep writing, but I want you to read out loud what you wrote on the first line. I remember once I was giving this lecture to a group of freshmen, and the student said out loud, dude, I can do that. And I said, I'll bet you $1 million you can. I'll bet you 10 grand right now that you can. I'll pay you right now $1,000 if you can do this. Now she was excited because she was about to get really rich. She wrote 5 lines, and then she discovered what anyone will discover. There ain't nobody on this planet that can do that. Isn't that fascinating? As amazingly gifted as your mind is, there are 2 activities you cannot do simultaneously. You cannot write and read at the same time. They are what we call mutually exclusive cognitive capacities. You can't do them at the same time. Mutually exclusive. There's like a big gap between the 2 of them, right? Think about it. That's what we're doing when we're playing this game. Writing, 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 and then all of a sudden we want to start reading while we're writing. Can't be done, which is why the editor's voice steps out so powerfully and guns down the creator voice. And it's like running into a brick wall over and over again. It would make sense you don't like to write if you constantly are running into the wall. Now, let's say it out loud. Some of us have figured out a way to just do it and gut through it. But that's not the same thing as coming up with legitimate ideas. Well, let's try it, shall we? We'll shoot for, we're at the 4. Let's try and get to a little beyond the 6, shall we? This is Focus Jam topic. I'll give you a topic, and then all you got to do is just write. This is jam writing. Your topic is the first really good kiss you can ever remember. Now watch how this works. Watch how this works. Watch how this works. Right away. Some of us, the editor is unbelievably strong. Right away, our editor voice steps out and says, dude, you cannot, are you kidding me? You've never even been kissed in your whole life anyway. I mean, serious? Right? This editor's voice is an unbelievable distraction to your creator, right? So, don't listen to the editor. Tell the editor to stand down. And now we're writing about, for those of you who can't remember, say that. I can't, how am I supposed to even remember this? This is like this, but remember, some of you might end up writing more about how stupid this is than the kiss itself until you can get around to the kiss. Do you got me? All right, here we go. Ready? Yeah, remember. Hey, remember the question, can I write about something else? Dude, did you hear this? That's what this is. But if you run out of things to write about, guess what you're going back to? Right? First time you can remember getting kissed. I am assuming you've been kissed. No, I'm assuming that. You can write about whatever you want to write about, though. All right? All right, here we go. Move the pen. Again, I will help you if I need to. How's that? Now you can always write about whatever music you're listening to as well.